What's going on, everyone? And welcome to another episode of Writing Friction. And as always, today's guest is pretty cool. Everyone say hello to Gabriela Garcia. How are you, Gabriela?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. We were just talking about your fancy blue microphone. It's your first time using it, right? It looks great. It sounds great.
Yeah, I've used it a few times, but yeah, it feels very, very fancy.
Yeah. Blue mic, they were, I feel like this is going to bore you and everyone else, but I have to talk about it. They came onto the scene like 15 years ago. All of a sudden, all like the Guitar Center ads, everything, it was blue microphone this, and they were very cool with their design. They're a very smart company with that. You worked in music a little bit, where we were kind of maybe talking about that before the podcast. I don't know if you have any experience with microphones, but
I worked in music, but I didn't work directly with like recording. So I have zero knowledge of microphones. All I know is that my publisher sent me this fancy microphone and I just feel very cool and professional. But yeah, so my first job out of undergrad was in music. I worked for Island Def Jam for Universal Music. And that was, sort of what I thought I wanted to do right after college. And I'd also studied radio and television in undergrad. I had double majored in that, sociology. So just nothing having to do with creative writing. And so I worked as an intern and an assistant for the marketing department at Island Def Jam.
Were you writing during that time? I mean, how far back, when did your writing kind of begin to take form into your life?
I, like many writers, have been writing since I can remember. Like when I was a really little kid, I used to dictate stories to my mom and she would write them down. So I've been writing all my life. And around that time, I think I was mostly writing poetry, but it was nothing that I really shared or that I even thought was good enough to be out in the world. It took me close to a decade from that point, I think, before I, pursued an MFA and really thought about publishing professionally.
So you're originally from the East Coast, right?
I am. Yeah. I was born in New York and then raised in Miami.
And how long were you in each city? How long were you in New York? How long were you in Miami for? I'm a Jersey boy, but I spent every year going to Florida to visit my Jewish grandparents in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah.
So I had a similar experience in reverse because most of my family was in New York. I was in New York, I think, until I was 5 years old. So really young. I moved to Miami. But yeah, we, all of my family, other than my mom and my grandma, were in New York. So we'd go back for Christmas. We'd go back for the summers. I spent a lot of time in New York. And then I went back for undergrad. I went to Fordham University in the Bronx. And then I ended up staying for several years after that. So so I've spent a lot of time between Miami and New York.
But the majority of your childhood and teen years were spent in Miami.
Yes.
Okay. What was that like growing up in Florida?
I mean, I don't have much to compare it to. So to me, I thought that was just what it was like to be a teenager. But of course there were, unique things that are quite unique to Miami. I mean, I grew up around.
Was there a heavy Cuban community where you grew up?
Yeah. Really large Cuban community, and also, immigrants from all over Latin America, really. Also large Caribbean populations. So, hurricanes. I was going to clubs when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I lived.
It's a rowdy place.
Yeah. I mean, I lived 40 minutes from the beach or from anything cool.
Yeah.
So it's not like I live this glamorous life of waking up and going to the beach every day. But yeah, I wore shorts year round. It was great.
Yeah. And then so you went back to New York. You said you were pursuing the MFA at Fordham. That was kind of Yeah, tell us about that.
I went to New York for undergrad. So I went to Fordham, and I double majored in sociology and communications focused on radio and television. And then it was about 10 years from there until I got an MFA at Purdue.
So what was going on? You said when you were graduating college, you thought you wanted to work in the music business. What was leading you in that direction? I mean, what was your life? What was going on?
Yeah. I mean, I had always loved music, and I think at the time I was just like, I love music. I want to be around people making music. Like this is the path that I want to go on.
Were you going to shows?
Yeah, I mean, it involves going to a lot of events, a lot of like album release parties and listening sessions and things like that. So it was kind of a morning to night job that just like took over my entire life basically. And it was fun, but ultimately I realized that, I was more a music fan than someone who like really kind of wanted to see how the sausage gets made, as they say.
Yeah. You're the third person to say that on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Nathan Englander famously said it. But it's interesting. I mean, for me, this podcast has been seeing how does the book world get made? I'm a new author. You're a new author. For people who don't know, please tell us the name of your book that's going to be coming out soon.
Of Women and Salt.
There it is. And so my first book came out a year ago, 3 weeks before the world shut down. And I'm like, well, shit, it's gone. Anything that was building up for the book was gone. And I'm like, I had this idea for the podcast. I'm like, let me see how this curtain, because I've been in music my whole life. I've been to those listening parties. I've been in the van. I've been in the bus. I've done all that shit. For me, the podcast is like, let me see how how these books get out into the world, what goes behind them, and who are the people that are making them. And it's been blowing my mind because everyone comes at it from a different angle. Some people, like you said, you were writing poetry as a kid. Some people didn't write anything until they were 40. It's all different kind of walks of life and people like that. So when you're in this music world, it's kind of taking over your life. Are you doing any writing at that point then?
I think I was always writing, but it was a private pursuit. It wasn't something that I was sharing with people or putting out into the world. I had a series of jobs that were sort of writing adjacent that involved a lot of writing, but were not, creative writing. I wasn't doing fiction writing. So like after that, I had like an internship at Latina magazine, and I was like writing news clips for them.
What was the magazine?
Latina magazine.
That was the name of the magazine. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. And then I had a year where I was working for the Miami New Times, which is basically at the time it was owned by the Village Voice, and it was basically like the alternative weekly.
How was that
Miami.
experience?
Was
that fun?
It was fun. I got to do a little bit of editing work, and I also, I was writing about music. I was going to shows and writing about it, and I was writing about culture and arts. So it was great. And then from that point, I went into organizing. So kind of took a total different
what do you mean by that?
So I started off doing basically doing deportation defense work at change.org, which is like the large petition website. At the time, though, it was also like a blogging website. So I was like blogging for their immigrant rights section, and that sort of developed into like organizing work. My first job as an organizer. And then from there, I ended up working for another organization called Presente, doing migrant justice work. And then I ended up working for a feminist organization after that. And then I went to my MFA.
So quite different from Island Def Jam years prior to...
Oh, I've been all over the place. Yeah.
And do you think that comes out in your writing?
I mean, I think I took the path that I needed to take. Like, I don't know what I would have written about if I had like gone straight out of undergrad into an MFA, which, some people are able to do really well, but I think I was not ready at that point. And I think, all of those years of many different experiences and trajectories, like certainly has sort of enriched, my imaginative real estate and what I gravitate toward writing about. Mm-hmm.
Imaginative real estate. That
I just made that up out of thin air.
Well, no, it works because it's true. It's just like, we have to allow ourselves, right, the ability to still be, I'm 33 and it's silly. I find it silly for me when I'm writing things to again, let go of my imagination, because as you get older, it's, you're kind of, society kind of pushes, imagination's for kids. You're not supposed to be imaginative as you get older, and bills kind of start piling up. So I like that imaginative real estate. So then, all right, so you kind of go through all of this, and you're doing that, and this. When did this book kind of start to form? When did you kind of get the inklings for what will become this book?
Yeah, so some of what became the book, I was writing before my MFA. And some of it I was writing during my MFA.
Let me stop you there. I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
The MFA thing's an interesting thing. We've had some people on the podcast who swear by it. We have some people on the podcast who think it's a complete waste of your time. It's interesting that you say you started writing the book before you started the MFA and then after. Did it change? Did that change you? You're right. I mean, are you happy it happened that way, to kind of split it up that way?
Absolutely. I feel like I learned so much and became such a better writer during my time in the MFA. Also, just that time spent, sort of solely focused on my artistry.
Yeah.
Was just so valuable to me. I think it's, MFAs work for you if that's what you want to do, and if not, that's cool too. But for me, it was
your first time
really
sharing your work with people. You said you had kind of been a person who never really talked about
it. Was like, truly, I had never taken a workshop. I had never shared my creative writing. I was sort of, shocked to even get into the program that I wanted to go to. And so, it was great. And, I was really lucky to have, some really wonderful mentors who just encouraged me also during the MFA. But yeah, my book came out of basically what was my thesis, the novel that I turned in as my thesis. Eventually, I worked to revise it a little bit more, but that's basically what forms of Women and Salt.
Are you someone who's fond of routine? Do you write same time, same place? How did the book come to be?
Not even a little bit. I'm wildly undisciplined.
I mean, what's going on? Are you dating at the time? What's going on in your life?
I was thinking about this thing that my the poet Kaveh Akbar used to say, which is that there's some writers who are ox, who basically need to just till the land every day, and that's how they work. And then there's some who are cats, who are just sort of more spontaneous and kind of just go, are inspired when they're inspired. And I think I'm very much like a cat writer. I go through these feverish writing periods, and I like to write at night. Sometimes I'll write all night, and then other times I don't, and I'll just be, reading and thinking or whatever. So yeah, I don't have a routine. I think it's really cool that some people do, who are I wake up at a certain time and use my special pen and sit in my special chair. And I wish I had a really cool routine like that. But
people think I'm fucking crazy because I do that. And you say it's cool, but I tell people I do that and they look at me, they're like, how what? I wake up every day at the same time. I write at the same time. I do the same thing. And to me, I'd go crazy if I couldn't do that. That would make me go insane. I'm the total opposite of the cat.
You're an ox.
Yeah, total opposite. Yeah, I'm going to remember that one for sure. Wait, who was the poet who said that?
Kaveh Akbar. Yeah, I don't know if he made it up or, but he's the one who told me that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're going to self-define yourself as the cat person writer. And
which makes us on like multiple levels because I like love cats too.
Okay, yeah, I have we have Reba's the famous puppy on the podcast, but she was being naughty before, so she is in her crate at the moment because she was barking at the neighbors. But yeah. Anyways, but yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so you're piecing together this stuff. You go to your MFA program. You then finish the novel. Again, I've never stepped foot in an MFA program. I've never sat in a lecture. I don't know the inner workings of that. It seems to be a lot of people say, it's not the sausage factory, but it's just, you're grinding in, you're doing whatever it is they're doing. And at the end you are, kind of spit out, but there's places for you to go. Can you explain how you went about getting this novel into the hands of the people who can make it a reality for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think my paths of publication is not representative of most paths. So, I think I was really lucky for a number of reasons, but I mean, one of my, really good teachers and mentors is Roxane Gay. And she's just been such an incredible supporter of my work and just incredibly encouraging. So when I graduated, she tweeted about my novel. She'd been on my thesis committee, so she'd read it and she tweeted about it. And around the same time, I also had won a Rona Jaffe Foundation Writers Award, which is, basically a monetary award that, allowed me a year to continue working on my novel. So those two things were sort of happening simultaneously. And so I sort of, got this flood of agent interest. And at that point, I was just like, I'm not ready. Like, I think I could work on this like for so much longer. Like I knew nothing about agents or, any of the business of publishing.
Had you even written a query letter?
I had not, I hadn't even thought I was like at that point or ready, but it was sort of like, okay, people are asking for it. Like, let me just, send it, whatever. But yeah, I ended up really, really loving my agents, who are PJ Mark and Mariah Spence. They understood what I was trying to do, and I just loved them. So I ended up working with them and worked on it with them for a few months, and then I went out on submission.
Yeah. You mentioned Roxane Gay, and then you mentioned Twitter, and Twitter. I'm new to Twitter, self-admittedly. I'm not good at it. I don't really get it. I also know it's not really meant for me. I'm a white straight male. People don't want to care about me on Twitter right now. That being said, with the tweets and things like that, I mean, it's amazing what one tweet can change everything for someone. And I mean, with the Roxane Gay thing, maybe we can get her on the podcast and we could talk about, her tweeting about you. But you had said that she was a mentor of yours. What was that like, having her in your life and working with her and,
It's been wonderful for so many reasons, both, everything I've learned from her about writing, about being a writer, about navigating the publishing industry. I mean, she's wonderful. And I think she's been really good at sort of pushing me. Like I said, I think I would have probably, revised and worked on the book for, I don't know, maybe years before I even
really. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think I'm like that, and I just hold on to things. And I think she has always sort of, just pushed me to share my work. And I think that was actually a really helpful push at that time. Like, okay, you know what, just send it to agents, So yeah, so I'm just immensely, immensely grateful that I have her as a resource and a mentor.
Yeah, no, again, the Twitter thing, it's unbelievable. We had Doug Stanhope on the podcast only because he's a famous stand-up comedian, and he was on Twitter. He's like, I'll come on your podcast. He put his Zoom link in the thread, and I put his Zoom link, and he popped on. So, anything with Twitter, it's cool that we live in that age, and it's crazy to think that if our books had come out in 1990, what would have been like then? I don't know. The social media thing's very interesting. I don't know. Are you deep into social media?
I'm honestly not. Like, I'm more of a lurker. Like,
for sure.
I like to, sort of see the conversations happening on Twitter or see my friends' Instagram posts. I'm not someone who's like posting super regularly at all.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
As a debut author in the year 2021, do you feel any pressure to have a social media presence?
I think sometimes that pressure can be overblown. Like, I've never had a publisher demand that I do more on social media or that I participate in a way that I don't want to. And I think social media can certainly be like a great tool to connect with readers, but only if like people are genuinely engaged and enjoy it. And so I don't know, maybe there is a pressure and I don't know about it, but I don't feel it. I continue to sort of use it in the way that I was using it before. And that's fine. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's other authors who have like no social media presence, but are killing it. So, I think that's fine.
And but I also feel like the opposite, where there's a lot of authors who have a heavy social media presence and their writing blows, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyways, you finished the book. Are you the kind of person, are you writing the next book already? Were you writing something before? Or are you going to take some time? How do you approach, what do you do now?
I wish I was writing the next book. I feel like this pandemic year has been terrible for my writing life.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of time, but just lacking the concentration and, just the ability to like quiet my mind enough to write. I've written in like small stretches. So like, I've been working on poems or like revising older stories, but I haven't started on a larger project yet. But I have some ideas brewing, and I'm hoping, to sort of come out of this mental fog and hopefully write more again.
Yeah. I mean, if there wasn't a pandemic, I'm assuming you would have been on your first book tour, right?
Yeah. So that's gonna be virtual. So yeah, it's kind of a different debut experience for sure.
Yeah, no, again, we've had a multitude of debut authors, and again, they talk to me and they're like, they feel like they're on the Howard Stern show of book podcasts. And I'm like, because again, I feel like if this pandemic had never happened, podcasts like this wouldn't maybe have not been started. And it's like, now I feel like this is going to turn into, when people go back on book tours, when they come to San Francisco, part of it's going to, they're going to come on the podcast as part of the tour, Cool. That would be kind of dope. Well, Gabriela, thanks so much for spending the time to talk with us. I always ask two questions at the end. First one you kind of already answered, but I'll ask you again. What is your handle? What's the Twitter, Instagram? Where are people finding you?
Sure. So they're both the same on Instagram and Twitter, and they are Gabby M. Garcia. So GABIM GARCIA. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And I know you're living in the Bay Area now, but give a shout out to some bookstores you want people to buy your books from.
Sure. So there's tons of great ones in the Bay Area. I love Green Apple Books. I love Alley Cat Books, City Lights. In Miami, Books and Books is great. Also, some favorites in New York are Word Up Bookstore.
Okay, I don't know that one. Is that in Manhattan?
It's in the Heights, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there's also Mil Mundos in Brooklyn, which I really love. Yeah, those are just a few. Oh, there's also in Indiana, where I lived briefly, by Purdue, Second Flight Books. is wonderful. Yeah.
Indiana. I have some touring stories about Indiana, but that's not what this podcast is about. All right. Thank you so much, Gabriela. Thanks so much for taking the time. And last, please, the name of the book when it's coming out.
Of Women and Salt.
We love it. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.